Hi guys, and welcome to my Mosconi roundup. It was 4 absolutely crazy days, 5 if you include the press conference, of course. And I've got 2 very special guests with me tonight to discuss it. 2 friends from across the pond from Salotto, and I'll let them tell you more about their company a little bit later on. I'm sure lots of you have already heard about them. So let's welcome them straight away. We've got Reed and Colby. Hi guys.
Hey. Hey, Mark. This is Colby. I'm Reed. I really appreciate you having us on, Mark. It's great to see your face again. It's been, I think, since September.
I thought you might have seen me on the TV on Sky Sports over the last week or so.
You know, we did see you. We did see you in the audience in the back.
Special shirt on too.
Yeah. We saw a very nice dress shirt you were wearing.
Oh, the one with the glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my trademark. So, guys, we had a little bit of a chat before we came on air, and you told me that you have seen most of it, if not all of it, also including the press conference. So maybe that's the best place to start off tonight. It was a little bit low key, you know. I was kind of expecting more fireworks. Jason Shaw talked about they're going to be fireworks. Don't miss the press conference. I went along to it. There was only about 30 people, I reckon, in the audience watching it. It was missing one person, of course, and what other place should we really start than the Earl Strickland?
Yeah, I think the way that press conference got started is, you know, in our world we were looking at this big full balloon, and about the time we tuned in, I think the news of Earl not being able to play was essentially the deflation of that balloon for the press conference. So, you know, we felt like, you know, Matchroom had their hands full in announcing this news, and the fans had a lot of expectations and excitement to see Earl. And I think that the way things went, you know, kind of left a bit of a void in that energy.
Yeah, I think that's really accurate. The hardest part was, I think, you know, going back to the fireworks comment, the press conference last year was, you know, far more like dramatic, narrative oriented. People were excited and talking smack, and there's, you know, Carl's lion and the whole deal. And when you have news like Earl not being able to play, it's sort of like you just get to a place where you're like, well, it is still the Mosconi Cup, but there's this big giant caveat where one of the greatest pool players of ever is supposed to be there and now can't. And so I think it did do some deflation work there, which is too bad. Which I think it's a hard place for Matchroom to be, you know, having to follow those types of rules, and it's a hard place for the US to not be fully prepared with a sub in play, and that's a tough spot.
Without getting into politics or, you know, which countries to blame, or, you know, the vaccine or the current situation, I don't really want to go there per se, but it has got a lot to do with Earl Strickland not being able to play. Now, I've been advised that had he have had a vaccine, he would have been able to play. I don't know what you guys think about that. He refuses to have the vaccine. I'm pretty well sure that if he had have had it, he still could have played. I believe all your other players were vaccinated.
Yeah. Without getting political and without, you know, sort of going down that rabbit hole, you've got to fully respect Earl's medical freedom to not get a vaccine, you know, but given the state of things, there are different rules that apply to people who are choosing not to get a vaccine. And he, you know, there should have been some awareness on that side of things to follow the rules that applied to somebody in that position. And I think that's where the hardest part is.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. And you know, there could have been a little more communications or precautions to ensure that didn't happen. I mean, we're talking about it in the past now, but you know, the awareness of those issues and maybe allowing yourself that quarantine, obviously it increases the expense of the pro that's traveling, but you know, that may be that may have been the right thing to do, but we just we're not sure how much they knew about the UK rules or how much was communicated about the UK rules either. It's just really unfortunate. Like I'm not even sure if it should really be about the vaccine. I think it should be more about the communication and team preparation, and the awareness of what rules needed to be adhered to participate in the Mosconi Cup.
Yeah, very nicely said. I couldn't have summed it up any better. I couldn't even sum it up that good, to be honest. It's a really good way of putting it. And of course, there won't be that problem next year. Well, not for your team anyway, because you'll be the home team in Vegas. Let's see.
We're going to see
what
you
happens to us. Huh?
We'll see you in Vegas.
You certainly will. Well, I'll see you before that in March, hopefully.
In March.
At the Expo, if you're there.
Absolutely.
Look forward to playing some more pool.
Yep.
I can't wait.
Okay, guys. So I had it as, I thought USA won the battle of the press conference. I thought you looked more of a unit. I thought we looked a little bit disjointed. So I was expecting you to come out all guns blazing on day one. Jeremy Jones, of course, having to step up. It was plain to see that he wasn't really ready. He was ring rusty. You saw him multiple times doing this. He couldn't get his arm through, and he just looked kind of uncomfortable. I don't mean that to sound derogatory in any way, but he just didn't seem ready for it. But having said that, top marks to him for stepping up. And, I think you had a really, really good Mosconi Cup for the first 2 days. I'm describing it as the Cup of two halves. You had the first 2 days, and we certainly had the second 2 days. I mean, let's talk about the Jeremy Jones inclusion.
Yeah, well, I think it was the natural and probably only choice that they had, considering what happened to Earl. But nobody has a depth of knowledge of pool like Jeremy Jones. I mean, he is the guy that when he's in the booth, he's telling you what's going to happen long before it happens. And 99% of the time, it happens the way that Jeremy predicts it's going to happen. He has such a depth of knowledge with cue ball control and just every other facet of the game. It's impressive to watch. And I think he had a bit of a slow start, kind of getting back into that competitive sync and getting that energy. I'm not going to get too much into the match of controversy with David Arcady, but I really feel like Jeremy got a gear there. I feel like he got into stroke and he got his focus, and we saw some of the best shots in the whole Mosconi Cup from Jeremy Jones.
Colby?
I mean, I think it's probably one of those situations where the power of the underdog, you saw it the first 2 days. I mean, from the press conference through the first 2 days, you had a team from the US that was just like ultimately unified and knew that it was do or die. And there's a lot of power in that. And Jeremy specifically coming into that role of player/coach, it's impossible not to lead the way that you plan to lead when you're forced to be in a player situation suddenly instead of being a full-time captain. But at the same time, he stepped in and you saw it by the end result of the score on the first day. It was like, okay, we can do this. We just need to continue to do this as the US, as a team. They clearly could do it, but continuing that trend is where things got difficult.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the first 2 days, you were on that adrenaline, you were ready to go, you were fired up. I honestly think the crowd did get to a couple of your players, particularly Chris Reinhold, and Tyler Steyer started off really well, but I think he just wasn't ready to battle, to go through that again kind of thing. He was, if you watch him, I've been with Tyler a lot in the last few months, and you watch him when he gets more and more uptight and tense and nervous. He goes bright red and his cheeks get redder and redder and redder. And he really did look like the Christmas Rudolph, by the end of day.
Well, to be fair, did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. To be fair, the crowd is rowdy and there is a lot, and generally fairly respectful when the players get down on the shot. But Reed and I started paying particular attention that when Tyler was down on the shot, there was very little respect for that. They would continue yelling, continue heckling when he was down on his shot. And that was kind of frustrating because I think it does tend to wear on a player, you know, I mean, pressure is pressure, and the way that we contend with it is different for everybody. But when it's, you know, one way for another player and a different for Tyler, for example, it can get even harder because you start to feel singled out. And I don't know whether or not he felt that way, but it was very clear from a spectator standpoint that some players down on the shot were honored and some were not.
I did notice that occasionally, I think half of the time, Tyler may have been a little bit of had some motivation from some of that heckling.
Yeah.
I do think it had a positive effect in some cases, but Mark, I think you're right. I think as the tournament ground on, I do think it started to turn a little negative there.
Yeah, you know, bizarrely enough, you're right. The first 2 days, I thought he was maybe even your best player. You know, he looked so determined. And I must agree, and if you go back through my timeline on Facebook, you will see that I did put an apology out on behalf of some European fans. You know, it wasn't all European fans doing the heckling while the players were down the shot. There were Americans doing it also, but the problem, of course, was you've got 1,200 English or Europeans, sorry, and then you've got 300 Americans maybe. So we were much louder and much more vocal. So, but there were a few Americans that were a little bit out of order. Luckily, by day 3, the ones that were sat behind me had gone. There was about 10 guys behind me, and obviously it was alcohol that was the longer the night went on. That's one of the problems with the Mosconi Cup starting at 6 p.m. UK time. You know, it gives these guys all day to get on the drink, and by the time they get to the arena, they've already had 5 or 6 drinks. So, but it did get better. They got more security in, stronger security, and I think generally the real fans were the ones, because it filled up more and more as the days. Certainly day 3 and 4 were much busier, and the fans were more respectable. I don't see anything wrong with singing, chanting, a little bit of sharking. It is the Mosconi Cup. The only thing I didn't like was when it was actually down on the shot. That was the only part of it that I didn't like.
Agreed. You know, Colby and I were at the 2019 Mosconi Cup in Vegas, and I mean, I have never been to a professional sporting event that had more energy than that. And it was absolutely amazing. Obviously, we're pool fans, so that's kind of a prerequisite to sit down on the Mosconi Cup and appreciate it. But the vibrancy and the energy of the crowd was just unparalleled. And that's part of the fun, the heckling and the shouting, you're right, the sharking. But we also recognize that the way it was handled, there was a lot of emphasis on quiet when a player is down, and you know that's the sacred time. There is a little bit of sacred time there.
Just out of interest, what sort of size of audience was there in the one that you were at in 2019?
It was packed.
It was full. I mean, there wasn't a seat open.
It was sold out. Yeah, we picked our tickets up about 3.5, 4 months in advance, and it was still kind of slim picking for us, but it was full every single day.
But
I don't know what the capacity was.
Yeah, that's what I mean. What kind of numbers? Would you say it's bigger or smaller than the crowd at Ali Pali?
I get the feeling the stands might have been a little bigger than Ali Pali, but you know,
Wow.
I'm not sure. I would probably say about 1,500 to 2,000. Would you say?
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
Somewhere in there.
About the same then, I'm guessing. Something like that. So just to finish on day 1 briefly, guys, there was the Eklan Kachi playing out of turn. There was that. So that's kind of slipped up a little bit there, a little bit of maybe not concentrating so much. Albin Ocean as much to blame, I think, as Eklan Kachi, that it takes 2 to tango, right?
Right.
And of course, we had the cleaning of the ball, which wasn't a cleaning of the ball. It was the removing of the fly, but the referee deciding to clean the ball because he had to move the ball in order to get the fly out of the way. It's complicated. It's 2 separate rules. It's not having the ball cleaned. It's an outer interference, which has nothing to do with the player, even though the player pointed it out. he didn't actually ask for any ball to be clean. So there's and in fact, it was exactly the same referee in charge of that match that was in charge of the one that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. So that's 2-2 after the first day. Just to tell you guys, I don't know whether you've been to Ali Pali or not. I don't think you have. Have I lost you guys? No. Yeah, it's kind of an out the way kind of location. I would have liked to have been a little bit closer to more things around it. Once you were there, you were there. It was kind of a massive, huge building. I don't know whether you know that it's actually the home of where TV started first ever time in Britain. It's the home of TV. The car parks were a long way away from the entrance. The toilets, the bath, restrooms were a long way from the seating. The bar was another thing. I just feel that I would like to have seen it at one of the places they normally do it at, maybe in Birmingham, somewhere central UK, so that it could have fans from all over the country rather than just London. But the arena just looked spectacular, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it looked great. Matchroom does such a good job at the presentation of the event and the lighting, the two-tone carpet, everything that isn't, a true indicator historically of why the Mosconi Cup is great has a lot to do with the production side of it. It looked great. I mean, I know there's some debate about the gray cloth that was chosen. I personally prefer blue. I didn't really have a problem with the gray. It's not my favorite. One good thing about the gray is it does punch the ball colors a little bit better. So I think for Matchroom, it's probably better to display their ball sponsors. And it might be a little bit of a better contrast for the fans to watch too.
I agree.
Yeah. Every single player that I've spoken to said they love the cloth because you can see the edge of the balls easier. It certainly looks a little bit better on TV, I think. And the table looked kind of nice. And I must say, from talking to the players and being there for every single shot, I think the table played absolutely perfectly. It was consistent. The pockets, I think they've got right, 4-inch, no bigger, no smaller. I think for rotation pool, that's absolutely perfect. I think Matchroom are now beginning to get it right. While we're just talking though about the table and Matchroom, whether they're getting it right, what do you think? What's your views, please, from both of you? What are your views on the shot clock? Is it the right length? Should the shot clock be stopped for cleaning the cue ball, or should they just get rid of the shot clock completely?
I'll start us off, I guess. First of all, yes to the shot clock, arbitrarily speaking. I think it's the right thing for viewership. I think it adds another level of pressure for a player of that skill level. That's good. I think that overall having a shot clock is the right choice. I think that also if the player is going to request the ball cleaning, you kind of got to be aware of that. I think there's probably a tweak in the rule that could say, no ball cleaning under 11 seconds or 12 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever it is. But I also don't know about ball cleaning at all. I mean, you don't see guys in the Philippines whining about dirty cue balls. They're playing in ankle deep water, for crying out loud. So I sort of don't know where I stand on ball cleaning or no ball cleaning, stop the clock, no stop the clock. I hate to be the guy who doesn't have an answer for that question, but I'm kind of indifferent. I've never been in a position where I'm also not good enough for it to matter if my cue ball is clean or not. And those guys are. So it's a factor for them, whereas it's not a factor for the general playing public at all.
If anyone's ever played a league match with me, they know damn well that I can't even make a decision in 45 seconds, let alone level out my cue and try and make a shot. But no, I agree with the play clock, but I do think there are some conditions that could be applied to that. I think Allison Fisher made a really great point about the play clock maybe not applying to hill matches, because when you get up to that level of pressure, that might be something for Matchroom to evaluate. And I don't think we need more technical rules to understand. But again, I think this is a communication thing. I mean, I know it's not the ref's job to remind the players on where they're at or what to do, but I do feel if I were in the situation to pick up a ball and clean it and I'm staring at Jeremy Jones with 10 seconds left on the clock, I would say there's no extension. He did about the best job cleaning the ball that I've ever seen. Like if there's a ball cleaning competition for speed, like he's getting it. It's just really unfortunate though with his loss on a technicality. You know, we're all asking the question, could he have made that 6 shot and still got position? You know, we look at that 6 shot, we know it was a hard side English shot. And it was, you know, to control the cue ball there was a kind of a technical shot, I think, hence a little bit of the lagging, but you know, we'll never know. And that's the unfortunate thing. The European team handled that with so much dignity and compassion for Jeremy's position. And you mentioned, you know, about, you know, a couple of the Europeans playing out of turn. It's the stress of the event. I mean, it is one of the most stressful events in pool. And I think that it really distills those mistakes and things that people normally wouldn't have a mishap in probably get messed up.
Yeah, I actually heard a story of when I didn't particularly see it myself after David Alcade had obviously cleared up, made and won the match. Jason Shaw came out. The team came out to offer their condolences, obviously, to Jeremy Jones. But then, as Jeremy Jones walked back over, he had a chat with the referee, Marcel Urquhart, and during that conversation, Jeremy Jones gestured like that. You know, he just had a brain freeze. He forgot. He did know the rule. He was the captain of the Team USA. He knew all the rules. As you know, before a tournament, there's a players' meeting. Every player has to go to that meeting, and they must know the rules and they know the consequences. So, as sad as it is, it's just bizarre that the finest brain of all in pool, there is no one with more knowledge than Jeremy Jones. It was just forgetting that one little piece of knowledge. And that shows you the pressure of the Mosconi. And I'm telling you, it's brutal in there. Absolutely brutal. It makes the hairs on your arms stand up. You've got the walk-on music, you've got Never Walk Alone, and you've got all the boys coming down by the side of you and fireworks going off. You know, it's like not that I've ever been to a baseball game or a football game in the States, but it was that epic. You know, it was like Super Bowl every single night. It was just crazy and so noisy. Yeah. And everyone gets, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think it should be, you know, I mean, that fireworks, putting the players on a pedestal to make people understand how hard it is. That's something I think that pool suffers with at an individual level, is the trouble to convey the actual difficulty of the game to the layperson watching is really difficult. But I think an event like the Mosconi Cup, where you have a stage that the players get to be on, is important, because it's a chance for some spectator excitement, and that we need more of that.
Yeah, and I think it really does show who the real Mosconi players are. I mean, there's no better. I call Jason Shaw Mr. Mosconi, because he is the glue that holds the team together. He never flinches. Never flinches. He always looks aggressive. He always looks ready for a fight. He's like a beast on the table. He's like a teddy bear off it. You know, as you know, I know him very well. He, on that table though, he's an absolute monster, and he does when you see him standing at that top of the stairs, he's focused, and all he wants to do is play pool. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to interview. Let's go. Let's get it on. Let's get it done with. Let's get it finished with. And yeah, so day 2 finished 5-4. You still finished ahead. Day 3, Jason straight back on again. It was a huge day. SVB and Skylar. I must say Sky was America's, I think he was the most valuable player for America. Had you guys just talk a little bit about how you saw each of the, I know it's a little bit unfair maybe, but you know, I'm prepared to talk about my players. So what's your views on your players? You know, who really shone and who do you think just isn't sort of ready or will be soon?
And you know, I've got to reflect a little bit on the Jason Shaw thing first, Mark. You know, on day 3, the look in his face, the look in his eyes was intimidating. Like I took one look at that Jason Shaw and went, we're in trouble. Like I've never seen that kind of determination like conveyed so clearly on a production like that. But you could tell that Jason had channeled every little bit of that nervous energy into pure aggression and focus. And you know, I wish we were able to do that a little bit better. You make a good point with Skylar. You know, I think he was probably the top performer in the Cup individually. Impressive to watch. Some of the unforced errors seen by some of the other players, I think, demonstrated that level of pressure and what it can cause. But it's really hard for us to be as compassionate as we need to be with never playing in that level of pressure. I don't know.
Yeah, the U.S. team, you know, there's a lot of speculation around on Facebook or whatever about whether or not the U.S. team is ready or why they're not ready or if they are, if the right players are there. And I forget who it was, posted something about looking at other tournaments where the players play in a similar format as the Mosconi Cup, like the U.S. Predator Pro Series, where there's 2 short races to 4. And you look at who performs well in those capacities, and maybe that's a good way to filter who would potentially perform well in the Mosconi Cup setting. I obviously am a believer in Fargo rate and think that that's a telling feature of ability. I mean, it is the telling feature of ability. But you see somebody like Shane, who does have such a robust and high Fargo rate, not perform to the expectation that people think he should in that setting. And I can't really speak to whether or not that's right or wrong or why, but it is what it is. I mean, he didn't perform like he could or should. And that's hard for us to see because on paper, all these guys are capable. And you look at their win percentage, I mean, Shane's won about half the time against filler. But when you get him in the Mosconi Cup setting, it's not that way.
40%.
Yeah, it's less. So it's hard to see or say why that is or how to, you know, from our 2 standpoints, what the right team members are. But I feel like it was a good team, honestly. If anybody was going to do it, they could have done it.
Yeah. I thought, as I've said before, I thought your guys started off very well.
Still with us, Mark?
I'm still with you. Can you not hear me? Have you got me, guys? Have you got me? Oh dear.
Yep.
You've got me, yeah?
Gotcha.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't know why. I think it might be something to do with the weather, typical British weather here. So it's maybe playing havoc with the signal. So we'll try and wrap it up as soon as we can. But we must touch on that 6 ball of Jeremy's one more time, because that was absolutely huge in the whole context of the match. Instead of it being 9-5, it could have been 8-6, and that's totally different going into day 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody today put on Facebook about the US Open. Shane Van Bonen says he called extension. The referee said he didn't hear him. He's playing Aloysius Yap. Aloysius Yap says it's okay, let him play. Somebody said today, what about had David Alcade then just played a safety shot off the 6? Or should they have replayed the rack? Or did they get it right?
Yeah, we've seen some talk about that as well. And I mean, if you're gonna just break it down to like a gentleman level of sports, handing that ball over could have been an option for David. Where that gets complicated is this is a team effort. So the decision, if he made that decision to hand the ball back, which I'd have to be honest, if it were me in David's shoes in an individual situation, not a team event, I feel like I would have handed the cue ball back. But I don't know what I would do in a team event. And David is a class act. It doesn't get any classier than David. So I think that just the compounding effect of having other players on your team really affects that decision. What do you think?
I think it's true that there is no classier act than David. I think the way that he handled it after the fact, he did what it's hard. He was in battle and did what he had to do for his team or his country for that matter. And in that instance, I think he handled it the best way that he could on the fly in the moment. You've got the weight of probably what felt like the world on your shoulders in that situation. Jeremy, that is something that he will probably remember for the rest of his life in a hard way. And I think there's a certain amount of sympathy that people very easily neglect when they go to their keyboard. And we have to be aware of the bigger picture. It's a gentleman's sport, it's an honorable game, and it's a spectator event that had drama occur in that moment, So yeah, I think it was handled the way that, in the moment, the best that it could have been handled.
And I do feel like that event affected the momentum of the U.S. team. I think that's inarguable. And I think that if that would have gone the other way, day 4 would have looked much differently. But that affected the morale and I think just the general displacement of the entire team and the fans and the staff, I would bet, at Matchroom too, because when these decisions are made at such a high level event on a technicality, that's not what people are here to see. They want a definitive winner, and that didn't happen in that match.
Yeah, very good point, guys. I never actually thought of it like he's as an individual, he might have felt inside that he wanted to do that, but you've got your team with you. And at the end of the day, they're playing for a lot of money. They're playing for $15,000 difference each, right?
Yeah.
So it's business. It's a job of work. You have to do what you've got to do. You've got to get the job done. So yeah, instead of it finishing 8-6, it did finish 9-5, and it was kind of over then, if you like. It's never really over until somebody gets on the hill, I think. But when you're always just one away from being on the hill, it's kind of like 2 racks it's more or less over. Just want to say, while we're online, guys, big thank you to Jason though for getting me the tickets for the 4 days. I was lucky enough to have great seats. I was sat right next to Pia Filler, and her mother and father-in-law, Joshua's mum and dad, were there also. And I had Natasha, Jason's sister, and her 2 boys. The 2 little kids were great. I'm sure you saw them on TV a few times. They got the same hairstyles as Jason. They love their uncle, of course. They got their little Euro team T-shirts on. They look fabulous. And then for the last day, their dad Charlie, Jason's dad Charlie, showed up unexpectedly. That he said he couldn't come, but he did. Gave me a VIP ticket. You might have seen the picture of me. I was lucky to get a great picture with my 2 idols, and they are. If I could have chosen 2 people to have a picture with, it would have been Jeremy Jones, my commentating idol, and Jason Shaw, who is my playing idol. I just think they are 2 of the most fantastic people in our sport. But yeah, Jason came out first, beat Chris Reinhold, so we're 10-5 now. We're 1 away. I think it was Sky and SVB that came out and won the next one, 5-4 against Filler and Shaw, I believe, to make it 10-6. But then, of course, Filler back on again, played absolutely fantastic, and wrapped it all up for Team Europe. I think overall, even with all the controversy, with the Earl not being included, with some might say a lesser player, Jeremy Jones, if you can call him that, coming into the fray. I mean, I think Team Europe played their part throughout, certainly 3 and 4 days. Day 3 and 4. Dependable David Alcade, as you say, not always perfection. Excellent catchy. I thought he looked a little bit out of place sometime. Albin, of course, no emotion ocean, as I call him. He's always going to perform. He had that tremendous break, 5 balls on the break. I don't know whether you remember it. And of course, you know, when all the racks and that were totaled up, I guess you're aware of how they choose MVP. Like, it's a half a point for every doubles match that you win, and it's for every rack that you win in a doubles match, and it's 1 point for every singles rack that you win. And Jason Shaw, I believe, won it by, I think it was little as 1 rack, I think, over Josh Filler. So 2 years in a row. Do you agree with that, Josh Filler, MVP?
Do I think Josh Filler should have been the MVP?
Yeah, or did they give it to the right person, Jason Shaw?
Oh, totally. They gave it to the right person for sure. Yeah, Shaw was as pivotal and crucial as a team member could get in that instance. I think he was the right person for the MVP on that sense.
Yeah, I agree. Just that determination and his leadership to keep that focus going with the team, I think that had a lot to do with it. I'm not taking anything away from Filler because his performance was outstanding. You know, I mean, the entire Team Europe was impressive, but yeah, I fully back the Shaw for MVP decision. The Carl Boys, though, I think he did a pretty good job keeping everybody together as well. So
yeah, I'll tell you one video I saw today that I hadn't seen right up until about 13 minutes before we started this. There's a video of the guys going out on the final day, Team Europe, and they all go into a huddle and they put their hands on top of each other like this. And Jason Shaw, because I'd never seen it from this angle, it's from the camera's angle rather than from the fans' point of view. And Jason Shaw is laying down the law and talking to them and screaming at them. And his eyes are just unbelievable.
yeah.
And, you know, he's really getting them up for it and motivated. And I didn't know that I knew he had a big influence on the team, but I didn't know he had that amount of control. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. Mm-hmm. So I think, guys, just to finish, our team is already picked, I believe, for next year, unless something crazy happens. It's going to be November the 30th. It's going to be in Las Vegas. You're going to be there, obviously. I'm going to be there. What players from America do you think are going to be there? Who do you think could be there? And would you like to see any changes?
I'd like to see. So I'm a believer in kind of the forged by the fire mentality, and you've got these young players coming in that need some conditioning. Reinhold, Steyer, even Bergman for that matter when he was there. You know, I think that I would like to see some of that young blood coming in, even though we take some hard knocks doing it. It's good. It's good conditioning for the long run for these players. You know, obviously I'm partial because we you know, Reinhold's a Salotto guy, so we would like to see him there. But I sort of secretly hope for somebody to come out of the woodwork that's new, that people are like, what? Who's this guy? I always hope for that kind of underdog scenario.
Is that maybe?
I do like the idea of, you know, this is a. Oh, go ahead.
No, carry on. Carry on.
I like the idea of, you know, still having a diverse team in the Mosconi Cup because it's such a spectator event. I would like to see Earl given another opportunity.
100%. That's deserved, I think.
I feel like that opportunity was, you know, we can't really find a fault in it, but I feel like that opportunity was taken from him. And I feel like he worked harder in a shorter period of time than probably, you know, the rest of the team to prepare for the cup, because he, you know, his intention was not to be prepared for it. And And I think all the fans were so fired up about that. And I'm recounting an interview we did with Carl Boys about 2 years ago. And we asked him who he thought the best 9-ball player was in the world. And his answer was Earl Strickland. And I would love for the fans to see that somebody can kind of quote unquote roll off the couch after being a great and see how they stand up against these young guys. You know, Jeremy Jones gave us a little taste of that. But I feel like Strickland was probably in a more competitive state of mind than Jeremy due to his training. So that's my wish, is that Earl gets another crack at it next year.
That was going to be another question.
That.
Yeah, that was going to be another question of mine. Do you think he will get another chance? Does he deserve another chance? I certainly think he deserves another chance. And in a strange kind of way, I think he'll be better off on home turf than he would be in front of that red hot cauldron of the Ali Pali, because I honestly don't think he would have handled it. I saw him play in the International Open in Virginia Beach, and he was getting angry at people, a photographer clicking his camera and a guy for opening a sweet wrapper. And he actually said, he shouted out in that arena in Virginia Beach, he said, "Oh my God, this is like playing in the Mosconi." And then a couple of days later, he was actually announced as going to be in the Mosconi. So
look at, was it Mosconi Cup 20 in 2013, I believe, where Matchroom shut off Earl Strickland's mic?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
I mean, it's a facet of entertainment, but his legacy in our sport is, I mean, there's so many of us that are playing because of Earl. There's people on the U.S. team that are playing because of Shane, and Shane was playing because of Earl. We have multiple generations here that can all stand up to the same table and compete against each other. There's no other sport in the world that you can do that.
Yeah, Earl for 2022 for sure.
Our new shirts, Earl 2022.
Yeah, I hope we do see him there. I think he deserves it. He deserves a swan song. It's like a final bow for him, I would say, like his encore, and then hopefully you win it, but hopefully, you know, he has a good tournament.
Yeah, that's fair.
No editing this out, guys. No editing it. So anyway, so that was the Mosconi Cup. It was my first Mosconi Cup. It was absolutely incredible. I thought it was a great advert for Paul. The majority of the players enjoyed it. The majority of the fans did. Matchroom, I've got to say, know how to put on a show. And Kelly, I just want to mention Kelly Fisher and Niels Fine in the commentary booth. I thought they were great. I loved the new presenter, the new girl. I loved Michael Bridge coming round doing the interviews with Pia Filler, Margaret Fefalova in the audience, and going over and do those interviews. I really do think, yeah, they're onto something. And hopefully, well, I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it'll be bigger and better, but I'm not sure it'll be quite as noisy in Las Vegas. But don't forget, I'm going to be there, so it could be.
Well, we'll be there too. We'll do our best to make it equally as noisy. But yeah, you make a solid point, Mark. We really enjoyed the commentation, and Kelly and Niels are a killer team.
Yeah, really good content. Learning the way they teach the players or the spectators, rather, to kind of pay attention to the shots and reading the table. I really like the way they do that.
Looks like I'm never going to get my job in the Mosconi booth, does it? I'll have to be. I'll be the guy on the other side of the camera. Thanks so much, guys. Do you just want to say a quick word about your product, Salotto? I love it. You know, I've got the t-shirts and the hat.
Yeah,
perfect.
Now we're
there it is. All right. Well, yeah, for the fans that don't know, or the listeners that don't know, Salotto is a 1v1 competitive pool app. It allows anyone to make any table competitive at any time, and we are the only utility available where you can self-report the results of a challenge match to Fargo rate. So our goal was to fill the gaps in between leagues and tournaments, and allow anyone to elevate their game and make it competitive wherever and whenever they want.
Wow, that sounded like that was rehearsed. That sounded brilliant.
It's only taken me a couple of years to figure out what we do.
You have a great match coming up, don't you? The Dominic Dunn and
So we're gonna figure out who the best amateur player is in Florida. We got Dominic Dunn squaring up against Andrew Cleary for $5,000 in the middle. That's happening on January 2nd, I believe. So check out our Salotto Facebook page. It's going to be a fun match. Those guys are so creative and they're influential in our history. We all look up to them and they are hilarious. What's up, 2 Chains?
Yeah, you know, Two Piece Q today recorded for Andrew Cleary a little bit of a trailer for him. So I'm going to be appearing in one of the adverts for the match. I cannot wait for it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I've got to go. This is 2 Piece Q saying until Las Vegas, I'm outie.
All right.
Peace out.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Adios.
Have a good